Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Once again, hello and welcome back, my dear students, to today's lesson. This is Mr. Salah Magdy. In this video, we're gonna talk about and discuss how to express ability and inability in the past. How to talk about ability in the past? Do you know how to use could, was, or were able to talk about past abilities? Before anything, we have to know the meaning of ability and inability. Ability is the mental or physical power or skill that makes it possible to do something. But inability to do something is the lack of ability, power, or skill. These are the elements that we're gonna discuss and explain in our lesson in this video. The usage of could, couldn't, was, were able to, was not, were not able to. According to our rule today, we have two types of ability. The first one is general ability, and the second type is ability on specific occasions or particular situations. Let's start with general abilities. These are skills or talents a person once had. In the past tense, English speakers almost always use could. We usually use could or couldn't to talk about general abilities in the past. For example, I could swim well when I was 5. Here, we are talking about a general ability in the past. So, while talking about a general ability, automatically we use could. Now, let's talk about specific occasions. Here is where the rules change a bit. When we are talking about a specific situation or when noting a specific achievement in the past, we must use was or were able to. The same meaning of had the ability to. We don't use could. For example, I was able to get the full mark last week. Again, we don't use could here because we are talking about ability on specific occasion. The form. After this introduction, I think you are ready to talk about the structure or the form of affirmative and negative statements as well as the form of questions. So, please be focused and concentrate on the order of the structure and follow the steps carefully. In the affirmative sentences, we use could after the subject and before the base form of the verb. For example, by the time he was 4, Omar could read and write. Here, we use the infinitive or the base form of the verb after could without to. You must concentrate on this point. Okay? On the other hand, here we start the sentence with the subject before was or were able to plus the infinitive or the base form of the verb. For example, he was able to persuade her to volunteer at the show. Here, when I say he was able to persuade her, I mean he had the ability to persuade her to volunteer at the show. In this sentence, we can't use could instead of was able to, as we are talking about a specific occasion. Here we are talking about ability in a particular situation. Okay? These are some essential points. You have to focus on them. This is an explanation of when we use was or were able to with the subject. With the singular subject, we use was able to. As you can see here, I, he, it, Khadija, Omar, singular subject. We use was able to. But were able to is used with plural subject. we, you, they, my friends, the plural subject, we use were able to. So the usage of was or were depends on the subject, the doer. What about could? Could is used with any subject, singular or plural. I, she, we, they, my friends, and so on. We use could plus the infinitive. And now with the negative. The same structure or the form of the affirmative, but here we add not after could and also after was or were. As presented in front of you, the form is the subject, then we used couldn't plus the infinitive. For example, Wael couldn't do his homework one evening. Here we also used not after was and were. Was not able to, were not able to. For example, I wasn't able to run 5 kilometers last week. Good news. The good news is that we can use couldn't, wasn't, or weren't able to express the same thing, inability on a specific occasion in the past. Listen to how these are used for the same statement. He studied 4 months, but he couldn't pass the exam. He studied 4 months, but he wasn't able to pass the exam. Here, you can notice that there is no difference between them. There is no difference between using couldn't or wasn't able to express inability in the past. So of course it's easier. Now let's move to the questions. The first type is yes and no question. Here we use could before the subject. We use could before the subject you. For example, could you read when you were 6? The answer, yes, I could, or no, I couldn't. On the other side, we use was or were at the beginning before the subject. Was, were, the subject plus able to plus the infinitive. For example, were you able to do the homework yesterday? The answer, yes, I was, or no, I wasn't. The last part is the form of WH questions. We start with the question word. Okay, we start with the question word before could. And also here, we use the question word before was or were. For example, what could Hannah do when she was 5? What could, the subject is Hannah, then the infinitive do. What were you able to see at the concert? What plus were, because the subject is plural, then able to plus the infinitive. The bottom line is you can say that we use the same form of yes and no question, but before it we use the question word at the beginning. These are some more examples. I could mimic bird sounds when I was younger. He couldn't swim until he was about 10. We were able to get a really good price on the car. Ali wasn't able to open the door. Now, time for practice. Don't forget that a lot of practice makes you better. But before answering these questions, if you think that you need to revise what we have explained and mentioned above, you can pause the video and listen again to it. Then you can complete. But if it's okay, so let's continue. The first question, rewrite the following using the words in brackets. Number 1, my grandparents didn't go to university, because they lived far from a city. Use able to. Number 2, Mona wasn't able to finish the project yesterday. Use couldn't. Number 3, when Nada was young, she played tennis very well. Use could. Number 4, it was too difficult for me to play the guitar when I was 9. Use wasn't. You can pause or stop the video and think about the answer, then come back to check it. Number 1, the answer is my grandparents weren't able to go to university because they lived far from a city. Number 2, Mona couldn't finish the project yesterday. Number 3, when Nada was young, she could play tennis very well. Number 4, I wasn't able to play the guitar when I was 9. This question is for you to answer it at home. You can leave your answers under the video, but it's up to you. Well, that's all for now. I hope I was able to teach you how to talk about past abilities today. With you, Mr. Salah Magdy. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Assalamu alaikum.